George Kilpatrick Inspiration for the Nation. We are here with Tim Penix. He is the co-chair of the Micron Community Engagement Committee. As you know, back in February, it was announced that there will be a Community Engagement Committee. Tim Penix is here to tell us exactly what that committee is charged with doing. Tim, good to see you again and welcome to the program. So what is the goal and role of this Community Engagement Committee? I should say, the reason why we're talking to you is because this week, the committee had its first meeting. So what's the role of the committee?
Well, first, thank you for having me today, George. I really appreciate it. And it's always great to be an inspiration for the nation. And thank you for having me on talking about the CEC. The goal of the committee, and most importantly, this first meeting, is to really have a group of individuals, those being the members from a wide range of perspectives, diverse throughout Central New York, to be kind of a catalyst to engage the community. And that's the sole purpose at this point, is for us to be engaging the community as we set forth what are going to be the priorities for the Community Engagement Committee. And when I say that, the fund that has been announced, that's between Micron, funds from Micron, as well as New York State, with the goal of the total amount being $500 million. So when we talk about priorities, it's clear, those of us who are on the committee, but then really everyone in the community, everyone has their thought what a priority is. And what the goal of the committee is to bring as much information as possible from the public to determine what those priorities are going to be.
And so let's go back. You tossed out a number, $500 million. So $500 million of investment in the community. And so the Community Engagement Committee is hearing from residents in the community on how best to allocate those funds as they become available, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I would say that the key factor is how best to allocate is a little bit more prescriptive versus what are the most important things that those funds should be impacting.
Okay.
Impacting. Because the overall decisions of how that money will be invested won't reside in the committee. And that's one thing we wanted to make
Let's be clear about that. Yeah.
Exactly. Again, when it was first announced, like many things, people only go to what they know. So when they think it's a committee, they think it's going to be a board that's going to review proposals and start looking at things of how to direct funds. That's not our role at this point in time. Our role is to gather the information, provide what we've been able to discover from the community. And from that will be guiding principles, as we call priorities, for both Micron, the state, and depending on where other funds are raised, to direct those funds towards impacting.
When I looked in the room today, so there are a lot of people in the room today, right? A lot of people invited.
Get a bigger room next time.
Yeah, I was going to say bigger room. And how do you make sure, because someone said to me, I'm not in the room, so now my voice isn't heard. So how do you make sure that that more voices are included in the conversation?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that. We are going to have more meetings. We don't set the priorities for Central New York in one meeting. There will be a quarterly public meeting, but there will also be focus groups. And even with that, it's still kind of impossible to get access to everyone. So what you'll see, and I don't know if you have it, but I'll make sure you can put it on the link for Inspiration Nation. There will be email connect or contacts that you can submit your ideas and thoughts, and they'll be taken in and reviewed just as if you were at the meeting. The good thing with the meeting is people are able to talk about it and learn from each other, but there'll be multiple ways that individuals can suggest or submit ideas that they think are priorities. That's overwhelmingly, I think majority of people will kind of be in the same area of what is a priority, but it's still good to have everyone to have that access and opportunity. So via emails, via the public meetings, and a series of small group focus groups will be going on all the way from now until pretty much the end of the year.
And so, talking with Tim Penix, co-chair of the Economic Community Engagement Committee, Community Engagement Committee, CEC, Micron announced, and today was at the time of this conversation, this is fresh because this just happened today. Although when you hear it, it ain't today, but whatever. Okay, so what we learned today people there were a lot of tables and there were facilitated conversations, and there was a sheet of paper with some questions. So what were some of the questions on the sheet today, Tim? Because you said that people can submit their ideas. So what were some of those questions?
I think there weren't necessarily questions. I guess it was the overall question of what do you think is a priority for the Community Engagement Fund? So that's the question.
That's the question.
But what occurred in the tables, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to actually sit long at any one given table, but I did walk around. But the committee members sat at the tables, and they were able to engage and talk about what people's thoughts are and what their priorities, that they were looking at and they thought were important. And just from some of the ones I walked, there was, organic and urban gardening. There was education at various levels, from middle school all the way up to college, workforce development training, technology in people's hands, communication. It was a wide range of things that individuals were talking about. So what the idea was to have them put that information together on the form that was at the table, and then that was going to be collected because there was a consultant that is actually going to be orchestrating all of this. So when you all see me, I'm not the one that's taking all that information down. So
don't get it twisted. I ain't got that. Listen, I'm not spending the money. I'm just collecting data.
Actually, and making sure people at this voice are heard. But the idea was they're going to collect all that information, and that'll be just one part, and it's the first step in collecting data to inform what those priorities will be.
In your other role as vice president over at EOC, obviously, this has a tremendous impact on the work that you're doing in preparing individuals for these future opportunities. And so, when you talk about the kinds of things that have been happening, I just wanted to bring that in because I think that's important. Probably one of the reasons why you were selected. And how important do you think it was for you to be in this role?
Personally, when I think about it, it's still hard to really absorb. I mean, I'm a lifelong resident of Central New York, and I've been a part of some big efforts that have happened within the state, from the AEI to regional economic development councils. But this kind of just comes and trumps all of them. And I'm not deflating the impact. I'm not deflating the efforts. I think they're all outstanding efforts. But when you talk about an anchor tenant like Micron, and you're talking about the realization that there'll be 9,000 jobs at significant income, that they are coming before they even hire someone 2 years before, saying, we want to make sure everyone has access. We want to make sure that we're going to put resources to ensure that everyone who wants to gain access at this employment opportunity, because no one's working in Micron right now from Central New York, to probably someone, but not in Central New York. So historically, with family members and a number of things that have, in some cases, been hindrance blocks or maybe not as open for population that we like to call underserved, underrepresented.
Mm-hmm.
Now that isn't there. Now, when you take Micron and put it on the shelf, you think of all the other impacts that will happen, all the vendors, all the potential increase of things to support such an effort, and the fact that Micron just may be the first one to come. We're kind of in this competition as a region with others throughout the world, throughout the country, but the world as well, to establish ourselves as being that semiconductor memory location.
And we have a lot of things to offer. Whether notwithstanding, we have a lot of resources to offer. Water, obviously, natural resources, among other things, and right now, quality of life. right?
Absolutely.
You know, I was down in the city this weekend. It's my hometown, New York City, and just my wife, we had to go 1 mile, and she was looking at the GPS, and it was telling her it was. She's like, she thought it was a mistake. She says 15 minutes, 1 mile, and she did not get. But and we get 15 minutes, and we're in the country, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
so that's a benefit, and I think we're creating. It seems to me, Tim, and I think this is why you said this. Being on this committee is so critical. It's a generational changer.
Absolutely.
As if it fulfills its promise. It's a generational changer.
Absolutely. It comes somewhat full circle. And we could say a dream deferred and all these things that have occurred with the South to the North and our ancestors or our grandparents, great-great-grandparents leaving where there was not opportunity, coming to the North, getting opportunity, maybe finding that opportunity wasn't as much as other places are now to their children and grandchildren. But now with this happening here, it's almost coming full circle. And it's coming full circle when I like to say out the gate, saying
out the gate.
We're going to make sure and put on in writing, we want to make sure there's access to it for everyone. And it's up to this community. It's up to the people that are going to be sitting in those tables, sending that information to ensure that those priorities do engage everyone.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the committee, it's, myself and Melanie, it's in what's submitted. We got to get those ideas in, and they have to come in.
What's the email that people can submit ideas if they were not at the meeting today?
I wish you would have asked me that before, because I don't have it.
You know what? We'll have it. Okay,
yes.
So we'll have it, and we'll announce it at some point. In fact, by the time it'll be at the bottom of this interview on the video, and it'll be at the end of this interview on the broadcast. So
it's at Micron ESD.ny.gov something, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. So please post it at the bottom.
We'll have it. We'll have it for you. If you're listening on the radio, you'll have it. If you're listening on the podcast, you'll have it. And if you're watching on the video, it'll be right there for you to. And so today's meeting is just the beginning, as you said, to inform what happens next, which is another series of meetings that will be happening. At what point will these priorities be determined, and then how will those funds? So then what will happen after that?
Well, the first step that I can say, they want to get the document put together, and the goal of that document put together is by the end of this year.
Okay.
At that point, once that document is together, I think it will be submitted along with other information to various the government, federal government, and then at that point, I don't have the answer of when the funds are going to be available and how the funds will be distributed. I think that that's something that will soon be determined. I think that, in some cases, some of the funds, because remember, there's two pots at this point right now, the Micron and the state. And Micron's already been able to give some funds out related to various projects. And the state has also done some things. And, Governor Hochul has been, she's been ahead with some of the things that need to be done for what you like to call quality of life, and I like to call quality of life, is impacting our roads and our highways, because it only takes 15 minutes, maybe 20 to get from here to Liverpool. If this was New York City, that's a 3-hour, 2-hour commute. So when you talk about impacting that many people, these things have to be taken care of ahead of time. So the governor has already been ahead of that, and I don't even believe that's part of what is going to be considered this fund. The answer to your question is the end of this year. At that point, there'll be more information. Each prospective pot holder will develop their process, and the CEC may be involved or not. But the number one goal right now is to just assist with getting this document put together.
Yeah, and we're going to need everybody,
Absolutely.
right, in that wants to be involved. Like, we don't often you might hear people say, oh, I didn't know about this, or this was after the fact, or I didn't, I didn't have my voice heard. Well, you're telling me that you have an opportunity to have your voices heard. It will uh, be something that everybody in this community can participate in. So
Absolutely.
anything else you want us to know about what the Community Engagement Committee is charged with doing, or anything else you want us to know about this effort?
Just show up to the meetings, send your information in, make sure whatever community you represent or idea you represent gets an opportunity to be heard. And from that point, the committee will take that and put that in, and we will see how our priorities will line up.
All right. Tim Penix, co-chair of the Micron Community Engagement Committee, their first public meeting this week. Another one is scheduled to take place sometime in October, but there'll be a lot of little mini conversations between here and there.
I know our time's running out, but I just want to emphasize something that we talked about in that meeting, that this is unprecedented. It is the first of its kind that we are aware of. And I really meant when I said the pressure of not just Central New York, but the pressure of the country, because people are watching. And this could impact more communities with our success.
What's unprecedented, though? What's the piece for you that's unprecedented?
I believe it's unprecedented for a company like Micron to come into a community and establish, with a joint effort with the local state government, a community engagement committee and a fund to essentially address many of the ideas and priorities that are going to come out from this document.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, with the focus of underrepresented child care, and ensuring that, as I like to say, an equitable economy will be realized. And many cities are looking at, how is this going to work?
Yeah. And I can tell you, my scan of the room today is that you guys did a pretty good job of trying to get as many voices in the conversation as possible, and was the first shot. And the second time around, there'll be room for many more voices. Absolutely. In the conversation. Again, I talked to someone, he says, I'm not in the room, so now my voice ain't heard. So that's not going to be the case in the second go round, because bring your tribe, bring your crew, right?
That's right. We got a bigger room.
Get a bigger room, because it's going to happen. Tim Penix, once again, the co-chair of the Micron Community Engagement Committee. We'll have the address for you in just a minute, and we'll have it all posted for you everywhere we are. Let's make sure, look, no excuse. I don't want to hear it. Well, they didn't ask me. Well, we're telling you that every voice counts.
I'm asking.
There you go. There you go. Tim Penix here on Inspiration for the Nation. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, George.
Appreciate you. Inspiration for the Nation.